Okay. Since everything is about lighting, why is it every time I do a video about lighting, everybody goes, I know I'm pretty boring, but that's not entirely the reason. I make a video about a new lens. Everybody's like, oh my god, what is it on the new lens? It's like, well, I know that's interesting and all. Sometimes it's really interesting, but what about lighting? Pretty sure that's far more important. You can do a lot more lighting and a shitty lens than you can with an awesome lens and no lighting. You know that little place on your camera called the hot shoe? It's like you think that's where you stick a speed light. No, it's not. If you're a photojournalist or you're someone that's doing documentary work or you're a news photographer or a paparazzi, that's the only time you should have your speed light sitting on the top of your camera. Because that is crap lighting. Well, if I point it up at the ceiling, here's a bounce car. It's like, yeah, let's let's take that daylight balance light and bounce it off that peach-colored ceiling, and then all that peach-colored light will drop on everybody's face, and then everybody will look like some sort of hybrid between a Smurf and an orange. Lighting. Quality, angle, application, and also where it is you plan on actually throwing the light on someone's face, but also the quality of the light that you plan on dropping on someone's face. Now, I've never seen anybody use this type of demo before, so I'm going to use this, and I try to make things as easy as possible. Obviously, we have midtones here. The midtone is the diffuse value of your subject given proper exposure. So like my face, this would be the midtone value with all this even lighting spilling on my ugly face. This would be the midtone, right? Specular. I think we know what specular is. Like if we shine a bright light in someone's eye, you see that little glint off the watery part of someone's eye. Or we actually have a specular area of like a stop and a half, 2 stops, 3 stops. Depends on the composition that you want over the midtone. Okay? Now, do you see the difference here? In the EV between these two? The EV spread could be anywhere between a stop to even as much as 4 stops. Midtone, specular, shadow. Shadow. Now, where do we want to throw this light to give proportionality to a person's face? How is that going to define the character of what we see? I tried to think of, well, what's the best way to talk about this in really simplex terms, just using these cards. So let's drop out midtones. Let's use 90% shadow and 10% specular. So this would be about 90% shadow, 10% specular. What sort of lighting would this be? If you're lighting a subject, for example. 90% shadow, maybe a little bit less than on the specular there. 90% shadow, 10% specular. Well, that'd be rim lighting, wouldn't it? Rim lighting. Can you think of some other things we could actually do? Let's see. No shadow. No specular. Everything is midtone. Why, that'd be a shitty, direct, on-camera hot shoe snapshot illumination. Everything is kind of like what's illuminating my face right now. Now, that's not to say that all diffuse lighting is bad. Obviously, a ring light gives a nice super diffusion. And also, it will remove the wrinkles out of an older lady. They always love ring lighting. Pretty much always. So that's not always bad, but it doesn't give any definition or character to the subject that you're shooting. A lot of people think that the reason that morning light and evening light, or the golden hour in the morning or the evening, is so magical is because of, it's got that orange glow, or it has that morning glow. No. It actually gives character, contrast, separation, and definition to the subject matter that you're shooting. Obviously so, that neat orange tint, glinting across the surface of the building or the person that you're shooting is interesting, especially reflecting off of the shimmering waters behind somebody. So that, that color gradation, let's actually apply some of that. You don't have to shoot in the golden hour. If you actually know about lighting, there's this neat shit that they sell called gold reflectors. Now, this is not one of those. I got a bunch of them over here, but this is a glitter one that I made that does some interesting stuff. You can mimic that kind of lighting, right? Let's see here. Let's actually drop it on my face. Obviously, it isn't going to do anything for me. Do you see that? Actually, my flashlight battery's dying out. This is actually a really powerful flashlight. I needed to drop some new batteries in it. The color, the angle, the application. You see how this is like spooky lighting from Halloween, and this is interesting lighting that gives character and definition to the face. I have a tonal range, mid-tones right here, right about this sort of zone. I have a specular, if this were a flash shot. Then I have X amount of shadow. Well, I don't have any shadows right now because I've got a bunch of lights pouring into my face right now. I'm shooting video, not shooting a snapshot, so you can't see that. So if this actually be a flash shot, this is why you actually see a lot of professionals using a radio trigger. They'll have a camera right here. They'll have the speed light up here. Why do you think they're shooting someone in the face like this? You know, it's like, why is it not sitting on the hot shoe of their camera? Because that lighting sucks. Sucky lighting, awesome lighting. Sucky lighting, awesome lighting. What is this? Gives definition, separation, character to the shot. What sort of lighting is it? Every time I look at a really beautiful portrait shot, the first thing I think is I'm trying to figure out where they actually place. It's like, I know they had a soft box about 8 feet over here. They had a silver reflector over here to add some specular definition to the subject over off on the side over here. You always need to be thinking about lighting, not only where it goes, but how it's placed, and also in the ratios in which it is used. It's like you just don't crank it up. It's like, well, I'm going to throw a reflector over here, I'm going to throw a secondary light back here, I'm going to use a hair light behind somebody. What are the ratios that you want to use to give definition? Understanding lighting ratios is important. I mean, if you want to think in terms of percentage, that's fine. Like 90% of my light is going to be coming in from over here. I'm going to have 10% orange glow over here to mimic the sunlight setting over on the horizon. But, you know, I'm doing this in broad daylight. I'm going to do high-speed sync photography. I'm going to drop it down to like f2.8 or f1.8. I'm going to shoot 1/8000th of a second. I'm shooting right now outdoors in like 2 p.m. light, which is really crap lighting. But that's what high-speed sync flash photography is for example. Shooting at 1/4000th, 1/8000th of a second at f1.8. Drop in some main light, drop in some fill light with some orange character to mimic rising or setting sun, which would be this right here. My flashlight illumination is dying, however. You need to be thinking about lighting. I mean, I'm all the time thinking about lighting. Not so much about lenses, okay? Everybody's read bokeh, depth of field. What about lighting? It's like, okay, great. You got a nice shallow depth of field. What about the... I dropped my flashlight on the floor. It's okay. I don't need it anymore. Specular, diffuse. Should I grab my flashlight? Sure. Let's reach back there and grab my flashlight. Diffuse, specular, diffuse, specular. Do you see the difference between these two? Diffuse, specular. What's the quality and the nature of the light and the ratios and the angles that you're going to use to apply it to your subject? I'll edit out that part where I dropped out the flashlight later. I love it when I'll watch videos and someone will selectively edit out something. It's like, I know they edited out something that they made a mistake on. I'll just leave my mistake in because I'm human, alright? I dropped this. I always thought that the flashlights like this should be square because I've got a lot of flashlights like this, and every time you set them down, they roll off the table. All these asshole flashlight manufacturers, why don't you make the heads of these flashlights square? Because I'm always setting them down on the table and then they roll off somewhere. Yeah, make them square. Dumbasses. Not you people, the people that make the speed lights. Diffuse. Specular. Quality and the nature of the light. Also, what is the quality and nature of the light that's going to give definition to the subject? Not only where you place it, but at what percentage between your midtones, your specular, and your shadow. What are the ratios that you're going to give? Okay, you got no shadows, no specular. Here we got shit lighting. Kind of like which is illuminating my face right now. Now, sometimes, like I said, that works with ring lighting. Nice diffuse soft lighting. You can, smear the lighting all around and it will remove the wrinkles out of an old person. You know, if you want to talk about how important lighting is, let's say you've got a young, beautiful person and all these lights are off and I have some nice, beautiful incident light over here like this. wow, great picture. You know what happens if you do that with an old person with wrinkles? What you do in photography, if you're being paid, you're supposed to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. If you use that same lighting on an old person, this sort of lighting right here, it will accentuate the wrinkles on the face. So when you see like and this is a hardcore fact, when a photographer sees like an old puss, an old person, it's like, I'm supposed to make this person look beautiful, or at least erase like 20 years off their life. You don't use the same lighting for a young, beautiful person that you do for, unless you want to give them character. It all depends on what the hell you want to do. If you want to give character to like an old, wrinkled coal miner, that's understandable. But if some woman wants you to remove 20 years off of her face, you don't use the same lighting that you would use on a beautiful young person. It's like, I'm going to ring light. You're yelling out to yours, bring in the ring light. Because the ring light will literally erase the wrinkles off an old person's face, because it will fill in and diffuse all that light in the wrinkles and crevices, and they go, oh my god, this picture looks like you must have photoshopped this. And you're like, no, I used a ring light. You have to understand that stuff, because ultimately it's about pleasing the client. I'm pretty sure it's about pleasing the client. Photography, hello, listen up. Photography is not about telling the truth. It is about making the client happy. If photographers are given lemons, like old people, right? Take pictures of older people. You're supposed to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. It is not about telling, it's like, I made a very accurate picture of you. And it's like, that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to take 20 years off of my face. People don't want reality in photography, unless you're doing reproduction work, which you're probably not. People don't want that. Photography is not about telling the truth, it's about lying. It's about lying. And you have to be able to know how to lie in photography. And being able to lie in photography is also like lens compression. Like, you can make a beautiful woman look ugly if you use an ultra-wide lens and get up on her. It's like, yeah, girl, I got this 18 millimeter. Man, you're going to make her look like she's got a face like a horse. Hee-haw! You are. You're supposed to use lens compression to your benefit. Because usually the clients pay you more money, or they just pay in general if you like do the right thing. And nobody wants you to tell the truth. Photography is not about telling the truth. If you're being paid, you can tell the truth all you want on your own damn dime. You get that crap? You want to tell the truth, do it on your own dime. If someone else likes it and pays for it, that's fine. You really can't make any money that way. 99% of the money in photography is lying. Lying. People don't want you to tell the truth. And until you learn that fact, you're going to suffer like a dog. It's like, I took a really accurate picture of you. It's like, I don't want accuracy. I want you to make me look like I'm 20 years. I want you to make me look handsome. Of course, there's no lens or lighting that will do that for me, for example, but it's like, that's what Photoshop is for. Photoshop. So think about lighting ratios. Where the light falls, the percentage of the specular, the diffuse midtone, and the shadows. The character of the lighting, the angle of the lighting. As soon as you start staring and recognizing this stuff, you won't have to think about it. It'll become intuitive. You see something, and you'll know immediately how to light it. That's the most important part of photography, not your camera and lens and figuring out how that shit works, but rather about where to put the lighting, how to apply the lighting, and what ratios to apply the lighting. That is 99.9% of professional photography. I'm going to drop it, because that is an undeniable truth. And if you don't get that, you ain't never going to get it. And, there's not a single professional photographer on earth that's going to disagree with what I just said, because it's absolutely impossible. And no, photography is not about telling the truth. It's about lying. Telling the truth is what photojournalists and paparazzis are for, that are capturing so-and-so Hollywood star getting out of the cars without wearing any underwear, paparazzi photography. Yeah. Bye. If you like this video, drop me a buck or two. Tell me to jump off a cliff. Better yet, send me a big fat cheeseburger, because that's just exactly what I need to stay in shape. Bye. Happy New Year and all that crap. Bye.